Good morning, everybody. This is Man Coverage. It is September 10, 2023. We are at week 2 of college football. James, how are you doing today, sir?
Any better be a crime. Fighting a little head cold here, but it's college football season. You got to keep playing.
Yep. You got to buckle the chin strap and fight on, even when you're not feeling 100%. We had some pretty good games yesterday. There wasn't as many nasty upsets as last week, unfortunately. That's kind of what we live for here, is the unexpected nasty upset kind of thing. We didn't get any of that going down, except, I guess you could say our feature game was an upset of sorts, or at least the underdog won. But pretty much everybody stood pat. But we're going to go through it today, line by line, and break down which games we thought were of most interest, what we learned from week 2, and then we're going to give you a player of the week, and also give you our top 3 as it stands right now, who we think are the top 3 teams in college football based on 2 weeks of action. Got to see some great action yesterday. I was at the county fair, and let me tell you, you want to see some tattoos and some interesting outfits, go to the Tennessee Valley Fair. Wow, is all I can say.
You guys are still having county fairs going on? Wow.
Yeah, they do it this week, September, every year. They do it right now. I don't know.
Yeah, it's always June and July for us.
Well, we went yesterday. I was like, when's the best time to go? And I was like, when the Tennessee football team is playing, because most people around here care about that.
Yeah.
And we'll be watching it or going to the game. So that's when we went. That game had some insights, and we'll get to that game. But first, let's discuss the marquee matchup of the weekend, and that was Texas versus Alabama. Last year, Texas was kind of controlling the game until Quinn Ewers got hurt and left the contest. He did not get hurt yesterday. In fact, he looked pretty good, but it came down to me was the offensive and defensive lines. The Texas offensive line kept Quinn Ewers upright. There is no Will Anderson, in my opinion, on the Alabama defensive line. I mean, Turner's all right. I don't have a problem with any of those guys, but there's no superstar like we're used to seeing from the interior of the Alabama defensive line, and also from the outside. So I just saw the Alabama offensive line get their ass kicked all day, and I saw the Texas offensive line dominate the Alabama front. James, what did you take?
Yeah, I saw the same thing, and a few things that I think. Because let's be honest. Jalen Milroe is a good running quarterback. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But everybody and their dog knows it, and they're going to stack the box. And you look at his completion percentage; it was just over 50%. Granted, he threw some over the top, but 107 yards rushing when you're primarily going to be a rushing team. That offensive line gave nothing. For Alabama standards, this offensive line is probably one of the worst and that they've had during the Saban era. And from a talent perspective, like you can look at it on paper, you think it would be probably one of their better ones, but combined together, they're just not playing well. By the way, Nate, I've got a really interesting question for you. Last regular season non-conference game they lost. Guess who it is?
Last regular season,
I'll give you a hint.
Non-conference game that Bama lost?
Correct.
Non-conference regular season.
I'll give you a hint. It was Nick Saban's first year.
Oh, then I don't know.
Alabama lost to, that's right, Sunbelt Power, Louisiana Monroe. That's how long it's been since Nick Saban's first year that they lost a non-conference game. And granted, they've come a long way since then, but the mystique of Alabama is not what it once was. And quite frankly, it makes me look at the whole SEC as a whole, and I mean, red flags are going up left and right. I mean, you had people going into the year saying there's going to be 2 teams in the playoff. I'm not so sure anymore. What are your
No, I'm still not so sure how good Georgia is either, but I'm not giving up on Bama. I'm not writing them off.
Oh God, no.
I actually like Jalen
Yeah.
Milroe. I know his completion percentage was near 50% yesterday, but if you go back and watch the tape, you can't just blame the quarterback. This guy didn't have time to. He did not have time to throw the football. Every time he handed the ball off, the guy was getting hit in the backfield, or the guy was fighting to get back to the line of scrimmage. Every time he dropped back to pass, he was getting hit, or he had a guy running free right in his face. He had no time whatsoever. And I think his linemen were kind of getting, it looked like they were getting frustrated with him because they were acting like he wasn't, doing the right things in the pocket and all this. And I'm like, dude, these guys are whipping your asses. The reason he's not doing what he wants to do and what you want him to do is because you're getting destroyed on every play. And that's really what the difference in the game was. It wasn't, it wasn't just Milroe sucking. It was him not even having a chance. And when he did have time to throw it, he delivered some strikes. But the Alabama secondary, Kool-Aid is supposed to be the greatest corner in the college football, and I can tell you, he did not look like it yesterday. Quinn Ewers went right at him.
Yeah,
they burned him pretty much 3 or 4 times when he was man up. 349 yards passing. Jatavian Sanders had 114 yards, but they had 3 receivers who had over 70 yards or more, including our guy Xavier Worthy. Danye Mitchell had 3 catches for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. The line was a problem, and the secondary. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not giving up on Bama. I think they have a chance to fix some of these things. That's the problem when you play a week 1 or a week 2 opponent who's very good. One of the teams is going to lose, and then it comes down to who can regroup. And the team that loses, if they can regroup and recover, which Texas really couldn't do last year, we'll see if Bama can do it. The good thing for Bama is the SEC isn't that strong, or isn't as strong as we thought, so they might be able to beat some of these teams on their schedule. What do you think about Bama the rest of the way?
Well, I mean, you look at the rest of the way. I mean, Mississippi State struggled with an Arizona team that's going to be on the bottom half of the Pac-12. Ole Miss, I mean, offensive line-wise, just doesn't look nearly as strong as it once did. LSU, I mean, you saw last week, I think there's a locker room problem there. Arkansas struggles with Kent State. Texas A&M looks slow compared to Miami. I mean, granted, Miami is a fast team, and I thought Miami looked a lot better. But that game wasn't as close as I thought it was going to be. I keep going down this list, and I'm like, Alabama's going to be there at the end of the day. It's just, can they not get? I mean, they got to run the table now and win the SEC championship, because there's no way they're going to get 2 losses into the playoff right now. Don't you think?
We'll see. It depends on what happens with other teams. Definitely a 1-loss situation would be the best for them. Going in with 2 losses hasn't really worked out for anybody the last couple of years. And the way that some of these other teams are playing, I'd have trouble seeing them get in with 2 losses. I mean, right now we got Georgia looking good, Michigan looking good, Ohio State, USC, Texas, Penn State looking strong. Lots of people are on the Florida State bandwagon. I like Washington. I think they're looking pretty good. Notre Dame doesn't suck. So you've got all those teams that have a chance to, go into this thing, with 1 loss or less. So I would have trouble seeing them get in with 2 losses.
Yeah, I look at the rest of their schedule, especially their games on the road. I mean, their hardest game on the road on the way out is Texas A&M. And granted, even when A&M's not playing well, they suddenly somehow play really well against Bama.
They do.
That's always been kind of like one of those head scratchers. Like the one year where they, was it last year or the year before, where they just basically escaped against Colorado and then come out and beat Bama? I was just like, how in the world can you just escape beating Colorado and then beat Alabama? That's just such a oxymoron in so many ways. Now, there was some comment bringing up some of the post-game shows that I don't know if I agree with, where if Bama would have explored the transfer portal a little harder and got a guy like a Sam Hartman or some of the other high qualified, like higher tiered quarterbacks, that they would have won this game. I don't think so. I mean, I look at it from a personnel standpoint, they're not as deep in a lot of ways, especially their running back and receiving room. I mean, I like Kobe Prentice, but man, the days of Suggs and Smith and, having 4 first-round receivers, man, they're long gone. I mean, this is a very different team than when you saw Sarkisian or Lane Kiffin playing doing the OC work in Bama.
Yeah, I mean, Jermaine Burton, he had trouble getting the ball at Georgia, and he's probably the best receiver on this team, or one of the top 2. And like as you mentioned, Kobe Prentice, Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, they're not bad players, but that's not Derrick Henry back there. Okay, that's not even Gibbs. That's not even Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah. If we're talking about last year. So the talent, there just hasn't panned out. And, they hit on quarterback after quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. And now we're all freaking out because Jalen Milroe needs more than 2 games to look like a Heisman Trophy winner. Yeah. It's year 1 as a starter for him. I know he started a couple of games last year, but it's going to take him a little bit while to figure out. And let's be honest, he's the best they've got. If they had anybody better than him, they'd put him in. They tried in the transfer portal. They brought in the guy from Notre Dame. They recruited a quarterback who's a freshman. Maybe they'll go to him. I don't know. I don't think so. I think Jalen Milroe is their best option. And let me tell you, it doesn't really matter who you put back at quarterback. If they don't have more than a second to throw the ball and you need more than a yard, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. You have to be able to protect him, and they could not protect him yesterday. He had no time to throw the football. You can't blame this loss on him. He didn't look great, but hell, he didn't have time to do anything.
I think it would look much worse if you didn't have Milroe at quarterback.
Bingo.
He
scrambled for several first down. He got outside the pocket and made some plays. You have a guy who's flat-footed, or Tyler Buckner, or somebody who's a pocket passer. It would have been worse. Yeah, would have been much worse. So I think Milroe is going to get a lot of undue criticism just because he's the quarterback at Alabama, and they lost the game, and their fans they're looking demoralized because they lost one game. Let me tell you, it's hard to win every single game. These Buckeye fans, these Bama fans, these people that act like the world is ending because they lose one football game are absolutely ridiculous.
Someone's been listening to Kirk Herbstreit again, hasn't you?
No, I'm just telling you, man, these fans who've never played college football, they've never coached college football, they know nothing about really the workings of college football and how it works on the field and all the work that goes in the offseason and into off the field stuff, and they just watch a game and act and then make comments like they know what the hell they're talking about. Now, I never played at Bama, but I did play, high school football, college football. I worked in the major college football and high school football world for 17 years. I mean, I know what these coaches do. I know what these players go through, and it's not easy. And these people that think they know more than the coaches, let me tell you, you don't. You don't know more than Nick Saban. He knows who the best quarterback is, okay? I'm sorry. The guy's the greatest coach in college football history. He knows who the best players are. He's put them on the field. They just they haven't hit on these guys like they have in the past. And that's not Nick Saban's fault. They're just other teams are recruiting guys too. And, you don't bat 1,000. You just don't. And they did not hit on some of these offensive linemen, or maybe they're just not developed yet. I just know I wasn't impressed with their O-line or, honestly, I wasn't impressed with their D-line either.
What's funny is I look at that game, and I think in a lot of ways Tommy Rees is going to have to expand out of his normal playbook, because you look back at his time at Notre Dame. I mean, the quarterbacks, they didn't get outside the tackles very much.
No.
And you look at a guy like Milroe, I think you've got to do kind of like what Jimbo Fisher did. God, this is dating myself. Back when Christian Ponder was quarterback at Florida State, when their offensive line sucked, it's got to be a lot of rollouts, lots and lots and lots of rollouts,
and run the spread.
Yeah,
I mean, just run the spread. I mean, hold the ends for a few seconds while they're waiting to figure out who has the ball. And you're just going to have to. He can't just run the traditional Alabama offense and hand it off and just have these guys blow them off the ball. That's not working. So you're going to have to get creative. And I don't know how creative. I'm not sure how creative Tommy Rees is. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad coordinator, but I don't know if he's as good as some of these other guys.
Well, I don't think he's ever gotten the chance to, because everything has been so traditional in what they've run in the past. Like, I don't think he's had a chance to really expound outside the playbook, because they've, like, you're at Notre Dame, you're in this box. Now he's at Alabama, he's in this box. Now, granted, Saban evolved. I mean, you look back from the Jacob Coker years on to when Lane Kiffin came in. I mean, that was a radical shift. They were going 4 wide. They were much more of a passing team than a running team when Derrick Henry was sitting back at tail. But granted, the personnel was much different too as well. Now, this is a weird personnel group for Alabama. And granted, the schedule kind of helps them out, where they could feel some of this stuff out before they get to the heat of the SEC. So,
yeah, they've got some other pretty good games that they're going to have to get through in order to make this happen and get back in the mix, and to stay a just a once beaten team is going to be difficult for them, especially if their lines don't improve dramatically on both sides of the ball. Now, they might start playing some of these younger guys, and we may, find out if they've got, some talent that they're developing than some dudes that are better, or these guys may get better. There is this thing called player development, and Coach Saban can do it. So I can see them improving as we go along. But, the game was going back and forth. And then, the turnover that was, right down inside Alabama's, what were they, inside the 15? As soon as that turnover happened, after that, it was pretty much over. And he did throw 2 picks. So, I'm not sitting here saying that Jalen Milroe is the greatest quarterback ever, because I'm not convinced of that. And he made some mistakes, but he definitely didn't have much time to operate. So he threw for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he did throw the 2 picks, and that 1 pick kind of ended it, because they were going back and forth. And after that second pick, when Texas scored immediately, that was it. And Texas ran the ball pretty good on Alabama when they had to. I mean, they obviously threw it 38 times, so it's not like they were trying to run it over and over again, but they were able to get some yards when they needed to, and several times, like at the end there when it was I think it was 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9, something like that. And they were like, are they going to throw it here? Is he going to stay aggressive? He handed it off, and the guy went for 13 yards, and I was like, okay, game over. So they need to shore up that defense all over the place, in my opinion.
One thing to think about now is you look at the rest of Texas. I mean, we've been focused so much on Bama on this first part. Is you look at Texas on the back end of their schedule now. I mean, their hardest road game is probably at Baylor in a couple weeks. Like, their schedule, all the games they need, or if you count the Red River rivalry, a road game, which, let's be honest, it's not. It's neutral site at best. But, I mean, majority of their tough games they play are at home. They got Kansas at home. They got K-State at home. They got Texas Tech at home.
Yeah, I mean, unless they crap themselves, they are set up.
Yeah, they pulled Texas's before. This
team looks way better up front, at the quarterback position. Last year, a couple of times, if Ewers would have just done anything, they would have won those games, especially that TCU game comes back to my memory more than the others. If he just would have completed a couple passes in a row, they would have won that game. And this year, TCU isn't what it was. They go to Fort Worth, on November 11th. But that's, they're not even ranked anymore, and I'm not sure if they have that magic from last season. So nothing on this schedule scares me. I mean, they play BYU, they play Houston, they play Oklahoma, as we talked about, Baylor, Kansas, Wyoming, Texas Tech, Iowa State. They got a pretty nice looking schedule the rest of the way. So I think that's one of the reasons people are hyping them up, because they think they can pull this thing out. Let's talk about another team. Just actually read something a few minutes ago where this guy on the old internet here, that's where all the geniuses hang out.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody that knows everything. And they're talking about how the Colorado Buffaloes are going to be headed to the college football playoff. Big game boomer. I think we all know him on the Twitter world.
Yeah.
Nice Twitter account he has, but I'm not ready to put them in the title game. But it's no fluke, man. If you win one game in college football, hey, you had a great game plan. Your kids really showed up. Great job. You win 2 games in a row, that's a pattern. And Dion did it again, man. The Buffaloes, shocked the world last week and went down to Fort Worth and beat TCU with a 21-point dog on their backs. And then this week, one of the most hyped games in Colorado football probably in 30 years with Nebraska coming to town. And, Colorado lived up to it. Just tell me what you thought about when you saw them, start to pull away from Nebraska. And really, at the end, they had their backups in for most of the fourth quarter. Colorado did.
I want to start off with Nebraska first, which is probably something untraditional because everybody would talk about Colorado. I think Nebraska has a major league problem on offense, and his name is Jeff Sims. I mean, this is the second week in a row you've had 4 turnovers. You had 2 really bad fumbles. I mean, how in the world do you have – it's bad when you have 1 fumble handoff. They had 2. And it just looks like – Jeff Sims is a phenomenal athlete, but he just looks lost out there. And I think they got to make a move and change him there. And I think – their offense is just not good. You look at their defense – they were keeping them in that game over and over and over again. And you could just tell the life just got sucked out of them because they kept constantly having to bail out the Nebraska offense. Right now, I think the only conference game, Big Ten West game they're going to win is Northwestern because they're just not a good team. They're getting progressively worse. And now Rule always does better in year 2 and 3, but man, oh man. But on the offense, Colorado side, Shedeur Sanders is such a patient quarterback. He takes what's given to him. He extends plays. Like, he doesn't do more than he needs to. He doesn't, he doesn't throw a really bad ball. There's never a really horrible pass he throws. Everything is very controlled in his game. And it's really, he understands the game as a whole. And I think him and Sean Lewis have really come together well. Defensively, there are some issues. But, right now, you look at their schedule, they're outperforming what everybody in America thought they were going to do. Heck, I'll be the first to say it. I was in that group because I thought you bring that many people together, it's hard to build a team that fast. And
hey, you remember what I said? I said that I bet you he might win 6 games. And I said, and if he does win 6 games, he's coach of the year.
Oh, absolutely.
He's getting to 6 games. Okay.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. Who knows how many games he'll win? And yeah, the defense isn't great, but the defense looked a lot better on Saturday than they did last week. Now, does that mean that Nebraska's offense sucks? Partially. Yeah, I think so. But I also think that means that they're getting better and they're going to improve is what the scary thing is. These guys have only been together for a couple of months. This team is going to get better, James, as they go forward. Do you agree with that?
I agree, but to an extent. My question with them is depth. I think they've got depth issues. Like their offensive line, Shedeur Sanders got sacked quite a bit yesterday. I mean, their offensive line had problems in their game. Defensively, their defensive line, they were stacking the box, just baiting Jeff Sims to throw the ball. Because, Nebraska's receivers really aren't as good. And let's be honest, if you got a chance to have him throw into coverage against Travis Hunter, I would. But yeah. I think the part that's shocking me the most is not only Colorado, but the entire Pac-12 looks significantly better than anybody ever thought they were going to be going into the year. I mean, Oregon State, Washington State, what they did last night, USC's offense is just a juggernaut. I mean, Arizona takes Mississippi State to overtime. I mean, go down the line. I mean, I feel bad for Stanford because they're going to get boat raced. They're going to have a real problem. They're going to finish probably last.
Yeah, Stanford sucks, which was one of the reasons that we were all kind of shocked that the ACC invited Cal and Stanford into their conference when they both blow.
Yeah,
that was kind of shocking to me and made no sense. But I'm looking at this Colorado team and I'm thinking, we looked at their schedule and we're like, man, even if he does a great job, winning 6 games would be huge because of how tough their schedule is. Well, now I got to be honest, I didn't give him a chance in this Oregon game.
Yeah.
Prime always wants to bring up how, he's taking receipts and nobody gave him a shot and all this stuff. Well, I gave him a shot. I saw him coach here in high school. I watched him coach at Jackson State, and I was impressed with him. And I thought he would do a better job than people were giving him credit for. I did not think in year one with 58 transfers, he would be able to beat Oregon. After watching Oregon play yesterday, I think he can beat Oregon. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to, but now that game on September 23rd at Oregon, that's going to be a huge football game.
Yeah,
and,
I agree.
The problem, and you talk about depth, lack of depth, that's when this becomes a problem because they play Colorado State next week. Then they go to Oregon. Then they come home against USC.
Yeah.
So that stretch of 3 games, I think, is really going to test their depth. I think they're going to, blow out Colorado State, and they're going to be able to rest their guys next week. But who knows? It is kind of a rivalry game. Maybe Colorado State can, do things that we don't think they're going to do. But, looking at this schedule now, Oregon, USC, probably the 2 best teams. But Oregon State is also good. UCLA is a solid team. And then they have to play Utah at the end. So, I'm still thinking I may raise my prediction, up to 7 or 8. But I think still between that 6 and 8 range is probably where they're going to end up. And if he does win 6 to 8 games, I still stay true to what I said this summer. I think he'll be the coach of the year.
Well, the one thing, because they're going to lose a game at some point, and he has definitely gone after some of the media. And what I don't think they should do, but they're going to do, is they're going to start attacking him the first time he loses a game. I mean, quite frankly, what he has done is amazing. And I think you're spot on. He's early favorite for National Coach of the Year. I mean, I think Sean Lewis is as good as gone. He will get a head coaching job somewhere in the country. I mean, he's been waiting for one for some time. I think this just increases his exposure because, I mean, when you could develop that quick, that kind of offense, it's a testament. I mean, it was a testament what he did at Kent State. This even further pushes what Sean Lewis has done full time. So,
yeah. Hey, I think he deserves to be he was a head coach, right?
Yeah. But I mean, at a Power 5.
I know what you're saying. I'm just saying, yeah. I mean, of course he deserves it. He probably deserved it before, but he won't last long. I think he'll get a job next year for sure. And we'll see what this quarterback can do moving forward. But hell, he's thrown for 400, nearly 400 yards or more 2 games in a row, and looks good. And I was very, very complimentary of him after watching him play in high school live and after watching him play at Jackson State. I thought he would be good. I didn't know he would be this good.
Yeah.
He's looked really, really strong so far. So
I mean, do I think he's got a cannon for an arm? No. But something? it's like you have another coach on the field. He thinks through the game very logically, and he doesn't make a big mistake. Just
No,
doesn't.
no, and that's what they need with these this young team and all these new players that are there. So they need a quarterback to lead them, and they've got him. If they can just keep it together around him, I think they're going to be good. And we got another guy. This transfer portal. There's a reason people keep using it.
Yeah.
It's because it has worked for a lot of folks, and it's working right now for Notre Dame. I mean, Sam Hartman is so much better than the quarterbacks that played for Notre Dame last year. It is night and frickin' day.
Yeah.
I don't know how good this team really is. We'll find out in 2 weeks when Notre Dame plays Ohio State at home. But to go down and win this game in NC State in Raleigh is a big victory, in my opinion. We all thought it would be a close game. It was a close game till kind of the end, and then Notre Dame ran away with it. What did you think about the performance of the Irish, and what did you think about what Hartman's done so far?
Well, I think you look. I think the one. I mean, everybody's focused on Hartman, and his stats are pretty good. What impressed me more was, I mean, Notre Dame's got a very good offensive line, but NC State's line of scrimmage play is really freaking good. And Estime was just having another one of those days. I mean, 14 for 134 and 2 touchdowns rushing. I mean, you look at it, NC State's best rusher was their quarterback, Brennan Armstrong. I mean, it was like literally watching when not Harold Perkins, who was the Perkins kid that played in Virginia a few years back? That running, that dual threat quarterback.
Bryce.
Yeah. Bryce. Yeah. And he kind of resembled that respect. They just didn't have that hardcore running game. And Notre Dame looked much more complete. Now, do I still have questions at the receiving core and D-backs? Absolutely. But Sam Hartman really helps those receivers out quite a bit. You could tell I mean, heck, look what Dave Clawson did with him at Wake Forest. He can think through a game. I mean, honestly, it wouldn't shock me one bit in 10 years. He's sitting on some sidelines as an OC somewhere.
Who, Sam Hartman?
Yeah.
You don't think he's going to play in the NFL?
Well, I think he'll play in the NFL, but I think 10 years from now he'll be playing because I don't think he's got a big primetime arm. I think he'll be carrying a clipboard for a bit, but he'll be like Kellen Moore. He'll be an OC somewhere just because you can see the way his brain thinks.
Yeah, I'm starting to think he might be an NFL quarterback. I mean, I wasn't so sure last year at times, but, he had the health issues that occurred last season, and I think that hurt him. And now, look, he's got a better O-line in front of him and better running back behind him. So I think we're seeing what he can do, but I was just more shocked, I guess. I thought NC State might come out and, take control of this game and show us. I'm just not sure this team is as good from top to bottom as some of the other NC State teams we've seen in the last couple of years. What do you think about NC State at this point after seeing them now for a couple of weeks?
Their running game concerns me. I mean, you cannot have Brennan Armstrong. If he gets hurt, their team completely changes. There is no logical backup there because Armstrong's just a good dual threat guy, but you want him more for his arm than his legs.
Oh yeah, I mean he was really good last year at Virginia, and once he transferred out, I was like, whoa, the Cavaliers are going to suffer for that. I think he's a good player, but yesterday, 3 interceptions that hurt NC State a lot. And sometimes these guys go to another school and right away they're great, and other times, not so much, and it takes some time. So we'll see if they can get better going forward. But this question that stands out to me and what everybody is talking about is how good is Notre Dame? And I mean, we look at week 1, over in Ireland, they beat Navy pretty handily. They destroyed Tennessee State. NC State, they've got another game next week against Central Michigan. They've got a lot of tune-up games before they get to Ohio State. So,
yeah,
how good do you think they are? And do you think this is a team that, can compete at the end of the year?
I do. I really do. I mean, and don't forget they play at Duke this year too as well. I mean, you look at,
After the week after Ohio State.
yeah, I mean, they've got a weird stretch where they got to play at like the 23rd. They got home against Ohio State, then at Duke, at Louisville, home against SC. That's an odd stretch.
Yeah.
And you'd want that more on the back end of your schedule. Having that as part of your middle schedule, I mean, let's be honest, they go 4-0 in that schedule. Mark them down, they're in the playoff.
Yeah, if they beat Ohio State, Duke, Louisville, and USC, they're definitely in the playoff.
Yeah.
I can't see them winning all 4 of those games.
I can't either.
I mean, even if they are a college football playoff team, it would be difficult to win all 4 of those games. I mean, USC has looked really good so far on offense, especially. They've looked really, really good. I can't think that they'll win all those games. Now they do get USC at home.
Yeah,
and I think that helps quite a bit. But going to Los Angeles isn't really like going to Penn State or something either.
Oh God, no. Yeah. That playing at USC is not that. It is. I mean, it's not like it's that loud of a stadium. You just got to get used to the vastness of the Coliseum. But other than that, it's not that loud. So.
No, but we'll see. Notre Dame's 3-0. This is good. I want them to be undefeated when they play us, so that the Buckeyes can maybe get some credit for beating them. Because remember last year, everybody built that game up, and then we won, and then we got 0 credit for it, especially after they lost a couple games afterwards. So keep winning, Irish, and let's keep talking about how great they are, because that'll help us moving forward. And let's talk about us, I guess, since I'm already referring to them as us, and we're here. Yesterday, things looked better. The quarterback position, Kyle McCord, looked way better. I get it. You're playing Youngstown State, but Youngstown State did win last week, and they're not a horrible program. I mean, they're not a Power 5 school. There's no doubt about that. But I'm just looking at it from a totality standpoint of him as a player. He looked more comfortable. Kyle McCord looked better. Devin Brown got to play a little bit more, but I got to be honest, I'm done watching the 2 of them. Kyle McCord is better in my opinion. He's their quarterback. We got to get this offensive line shored up a little bit better. But this was a game where they could have scored 70 points if they would have kept the foot on the gas, in my opinion. What did you think about the Buckeyes yesterday in week 2 with this new regime?
A lot of the same as I saw last week. I mean, offensive line, once again, was an issue. I mean, you got to get Mayan Williams the ball. You look at 27 for 123. You could definitely tell there was a huge focus on creating that running game, not as much passing, but Kyle McCord was effective and efficient. I think you're exactly right. That's put to bed. But that offensive line's got to stand up and really come to play. Defensively, once again, the same thing as last week. I'm impressed. From what I've seen 2 years ago and even last year to today, Ohio State looks so much better on the defensive side of the ball, and Jim Knowles should take complete credit for that. Granted, it doesn't hurt when you got good linebackers like Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers, but their D-backs are playing significantly better than they have in the past.
Yeah, I like these transfer guys. They went out and got Davidson, Egbudusum, whatever his name is, and the other kid from Carter from Syracuse. They were good pickups, and I think they've made Jahad Carter and Davidson have made this secondary better. I really think they have, and that there's a reason that they're out there playing. They're upgrades over what we had, and they look better. The only question I have, and I'm not criticizing Jim Knowles, I'm not criticizing any of the Buckeye coaches, because there's plenty of people doing that. So I don't need to do that. But I just don't understand really why there hasn't been more production out of the defensive ends. Jack Sawyer, JTT, JT Talamula. These guys were the top recruits in the country. They looked the part. I mean, obviously the Penn State game last year with JTT, I mean, he looked like the greatest college football player of all time. And we just haven't really seen that since. And they're good. I mean, they're not like doing anything wrong, but, you know, they're not getting sacks even against this team. And even last week, you know, against Indiana, they didn't get many sacks. I understood that. They were kind of run the option, so they weren't throwing it that much. But Youngstown was throwing the ball some, and I don't really get why we're not getting more production out of those two guys sack-wise.
I think you're going to see more of that this week with Western Kentucky, who's more of a traditional throwing team, and heck, even Notre Dame. I mean, I'm guessing they want to do a lot of base defense stuff and not show much for Notre Dame because, I mean, heck, you look at their schedule coming up. Western Kentucky throws the ball a lot more. Notre Dame definitely throws the ball more, but they're gonna hammer on estimate too as well. And Maryland, Purdue are both throwing teams. So I think you're going to see a change in that where Jack Sawyer can step up.
Yeah, I think so too. And you know, I'm not saying they're bad. I want to see more. I want to see those two guys change the game. You know, that's when the Buckeyes defense is the best, when they've got Chase Young out there. They've got Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, those guys. Now those dudes don't come around that much, but they recruit like they do, and they keep getting those guys. So I will say that Tommy Eichenberg, in my opinion, is the best linebacker I've seen in college football. I know I'm a homer, and but I just call it like I see it too. This guy is freaking everywhere. He can rush the passer, he can cover, he can play the run, he can play the pass. He's the best linebacker I've seen in college football thus far. And Michael Hall Jr. Might be the best D lineman, or one of the best interior defensive linemen I've seen all season. And he was damn good last year, but he missed some games due to injury. And you know, he's just he's a problem and can make these big time plays. I think he's leading our team in sacks, and that guy is a beast.
You know, one game, Nate, we should really change to is the game Friday night between Kansas and Illinois. Two teams that really took a step up last year. But I mean, you know how long I've been a big fan of Lance Leopold. The defense looked better, and Jalen Daniels is a serious threat. I mean, that's why I look at that Texas game, Kansas playing at Texas. That could be a problem for the Longhorns. And, I mean, what are your thoughts from watching that game?
I love that guy. You know I love that guy. He is one of my favorite players in all of college football. I mean, he really is. I just love the way he's a competitor. He's one of those guys that's a gamer. You know, I think back to that 3-4 overtime game from last year where he just kept fighting and kept going after it. You know, Luke Altmaier did not have a great game, and that's why I want to harp on what you mentioned a minute ago. The defense for Kansas was much improved and has gotten a lot better from last year to this year. Picking him off twice was huge. And then, you know, really, Luke Altmaier was the leading rusher for Illinois. I mean, think about last year. That was Chase. It was Chase Brown and Chase Brown. And that was pretty much, you know, Illinois' whole offense, or 70% of it was him running the football. And you know, on Friday night or Thursday night, whatever night that game was, you know, Luke Altmaier was their leading rusher, rushing it 13 times. That kind of surprised me, as, you know, he wasn't like a nonstop runner when he played a little bit last year. So big win for them, though. I think that's a huge win for Kansas. Nobody's really been talking about Kansas this year. I don't think anybody's really giving them a second thought, but with the quarterback like that and a coach like that, they could beat somebody that they're not supposed to. And so I agree with you there. I don't know if they can beat Texas, but they can definitely beat some teams that they have no business beating.
I mean, that was a defense that was so porous last year. Getting any penetration on the quarterback was an accomplishment. They had 6 sacks, 9 tackles for loss in that game. A kid people should be looking out for is a Minnesota transfer. Austin Booker, the 6'6", 245-pound DN out of Greenwood, Indiana. I was really big on this kid coming out of high school, and transfer over to Kansas and really shows out. I mean, he is really good off the edge. He's got nice bend. And you could just see Lance Leopold is building it in Lawrence, Kansas. And when's the last time we said that? I mean, you have to go back to the Fat Man. I mean, granted, no respect, no. I don't want to insult the Fat Man across the Great Pumpkin that sits on the sideline at Illinois, but I mean, what Kansas has done has been amazing. And if you can't sit back as a football fan and clap for that, I don't know what else you could do. I mean, he has done a phenomenal job in 3 years in Lawrence.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Him in Kansas and Dion at Colorado. I mean, these are two programs that haven't done anything in decades, and these two guys have come in and made a big time difference. So I'm glad that those two coaches went to those two schools because I think it's fun seeing them play football again. Now let's talk about another coach who did some amazing things at Cincinnati. And we all expected him to walk right into Wisconsin, or maybe not all of us, but the media as a whole expected Coach Fickell to walk right into Wisconsin and win every single game. Well, that ain't going to happen. Talk to me about what happened yesterday against Washington State. This is a team that nobody wants. They're in the two-pack Shakur Conference, Pac-2, and nobody wants this team. Well, they went out and won a big-time game yesterday, beating Wisconsin 31-22, and they were in charge of this football game almost the entire time. How did Washington State pull this off, and what do you think this game does for Washington State and Wisconsin going forward?
Well, I honestly, I walked out of that game last night, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, you've got Washington State, who look convincingly good, and Oregon State, who's a top 25 team, and they're getting potentially sent to a mid-major. I mean, if I'm the Big 12, I'm sorry, bring them in. Just bring them in. You're only helping out your product as a whole. I mean, you're expanding your base as a whole because Washington State, I mean, you go back over the last 50 years, they're a good program. Are they USC? No. But you're in Pullman, freaking Washington. You don't have a quarter of the resources or the talent pool to draw from in Western Washington that USC has from driving, 40 exits down the line, and they could fill a recruiting class? I mean, Washington State's got to travel to freaking states to get their recruiting class. And, they got Washington in their exact same state. I mean, Cam Ward, we talked about him going into this year. Or last year, this kid is a real talent, and he and Ben Arbuckle, the OC at Washington State, have done a phenomenal job, and you could just tell they were ready to play. Now the Badgers, something. I think this was too big a transition offensively from what they were used to, and they're not ready. And Tanner Mordecai is not the quarterback everybody cracks up to be. Yeah, he put up ridiculous stats at SMU against Group of 5 teams. But whenever he played a Power 5 opponent, the guy was an interception machine. And also, Braylon Allen, probably one of the best, if not the best running backs in the country, only gets seven
carries. 7 carries. Why are you giving this guy 7 carries?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand that.
Defensively, they don't look nearly as explosive as they once did. I mean, this is a team everybody was like trying to pencil in because it's Wisconsin that they're going to win the Big Ten West. Honestly, I think they're going to finish somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I don't see them winning the Big Ten West, especially with that quarterback. And if they're not going to run Braylon Allen, then they're definitely not going to beat many teams. I mean, he's their best player. You got to give the best player the football. I mean,
he's by far their best player. This is a guy who honestly will be starting in an NFL backfield in 2 years. No questions asked. And you're giving him 7 carries against a defensive line that's not that big.
Yeah, that you should be able to push around.
Yeah, I don't understand what the hell that was all about. And Washington State came to play. That is not an easy place to – I mean, you got to fly into Moscow or Spokane and then drive to Pullman. Pullman's not that big, people. Yeah, they just came to play. And I look at Wisconsin now. I mean, yeah, are they going to beat Georgia Southern next week? Yeah, but it will convincing? Probably not. At Purdue, that's never an easy place to play because it's like
No.
it's such a. I mean, even when
And Purdue got a victory
yeah,
yesterday, by the way.
but I mean, even when Purdue's down, going to West Lafayette is hard to play at because the crowd is just not into it. It's kind of like playing at Northwestern. It's you got to get yourself psyched up to play the game at Purdue.
Yeah, not to mention that place is a crap hole, so you
Oh,
don't really
completely.
nobody really wants to go there. So,
but
yeah,
I mean, going back to what we said before about the Pac-12, holy crap, this conference is way better in their final year than anybody ever thought of. Like, they are way better.
Well, I told you, yesterday, I mean, possibly two of the top three teams in the SEC conference next year will be teams that just got there. And I'm talking about Oklahoma and Texas. Let's talk about Oklahoma for a second. Obviously, the big win week 1 yesterday, not playing Alabama, obviously, like Texas was, but I still think that was a big win for them to string 2 games together like they did. How much better do you think Oklahoma is this year? And also, like I've mentioned in the past, it's not like they sucked last year. Everybody talks like they sucked, but they really didn't. They lost many games by 1 score or less. And, their quarterback, once he got hurt, that's when they were in big trouble. What do you think of this Oklahoma team at this point?
Well, I mean, my biggest problem with them last year had less to do with Dillon Gabriel and more to do with their defense.
Yeah.
I just don't think they have the Jimmies and Joes that they once did. And that's got to really increase quickly once they get to the SEC. Now, like I said this last week, and I'll say it again, Jackson Arnold, I think at some point will become the starting quarterback before the end of the year for Oklahoma. And if that happens, that could be an impetus because I think Dillon Gabriel provides a ceiling for them. SMU's okay. Preston Stone's a very underrated quarterback out there. But only winning by 17 at home, I mean, this is a game they should have really blown them out. Now, their defense looks better, but I still say it's wait and see. I think this is honestly an 8-4 Oklahoma team from what I see.
8-4?
Yeah.
Wow.
I do. I mean, I see them losing to Texas. I see them losing to Kansas. At BYU would not be fun to play at. I mean, and Oklahoma finds a way to toss up a game. I mean, their schedule's paper thin. I mean, it's easy. But they don't blow me away. Everybody got all excited because they beat the crap out of Arkansas State. I mean, Butch Jones is getting fired, folks. I mean, the hat is getting passed around Jonesboro, Arkansas as we speak. You don't have
he just got a raise and an extension.
I know. I know.
This guy, I give the man credit. No one has made more money in the coaching profession with less talent than Butch Jones.
Yeah, that's actually a fair assessment. He or Paul Hackett, one of the two. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, Paul Hackett's a way better coach than Butch Jones is. I mean, the fact that he actually won 9 games one year at Tennessee blows me away. But that shows you how good of a snake oil salesman he is because he sold a lot of recruits on this program and signed a lot of really good players, which he had no idea what to do with.
Yeah.
So, he does. I got to give him credit, man. I mean, he's made a lot of cash and won way more football games than he should, based on his coaching prowess. But let's run through the rest of these games right here. Georgia blew out Ball State. Michigan beat UNLV 35-7. No shock there. Florida State dropped 66 on Southern Miss. I was kind of impressed by that.
Hey, hold up on the Michigan thing, though. Did you hear the news of what Jim Harbaugh was doing during the game?
I try not to listen to anything about what Jim Harbaugh is doing.
Since he was suspended and couldn't go to the game, he was running the chains for a midget league football game. Uh,
A midget.
a midget league, like, middle school football
Oh,
game.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were getting real weird on me.
No. Yeah, it was like I saw that, and I'm like, any pussy wasn't wearing khakis. I'm like, holy crap! I mean, that's got to be.
Is there photos of this?
Yeah, there are photos out on Twitter of it. I saw it this morning, and I was just chuckling to no end. So yeah,
Even when you want that guy to go away, he won't. Uh, so let's not waste our time talking about him. So yeah, USC blows out Stanford. We didn't deny that was going to happen. Do you see Caleb Williams winning the Heisman again?
right now, yeah, but you and I both know that the real race begins in November, and who gets hot down the stretch. I just don't know.
Well, they weren't really hot down the stretch last year either, and he still won it.
Yeah, but he put up some freaking video game numbers though too.
But they lost. They didn't win anything. They didn't win the conference. They didn't make the college football playoff. They got beat by Tulane in the bowl game, and here he is collecting hardware. I'm like, for what?
Yeah, but you remember the year Kyler Murray won it? Nobody was even talking about Kyler Murray in September. Well, he was talented, that's for sure. But I mean, don't kid yourself. Shedeur Sanders is gonna be in the conversation too as well if he keeps playing like this.
He's in the hunt. There is no doubt about it, especially with the first two games he's put up almost 400 yards or more. He's my Heisman right now. I'll tell you that. Against a lot better competition than what USC has played. So Penn State blew out Delaware. Let's talk about Washington for a second, real quick. Beating Tulsa. I know it's Tulsa, but their offense has looked pretty damn good. How good can this Washington team be? And what do you think their ceiling is if Penix can stay on the field?
I think not more than Penix. I think they're not deep at all. If they can stay healthy, yeah, they've got a legit shot at the CFP. A very legit shot. Now, do I think they have a shot at winning the national championship? No. But do I think they have a shot of making the CFP? Yeah, I do. I mean, that is Kalen DeBoer. We talked about him when he got hired last year. That was a really good hire. Everywhere this guy goes, he wins. He is great at development. I mean, Washington was a mess under Jimmy Lake. And in 1 year, he made them they're good again.
Yeah.
Don James, it's like Don James is back.
Yeah. It was a big difference for sure. And they played Michigan State next week, which is kind of a big game considering it's at Michigan State. I think Michigan State will try and do everything they can to win this game, especially with what they've got going on right now with old Mel Tucker. What did you think about when you heard about that? And do you think he survives this?
No. I think they're looking for a way to get out from underneath that $9 million a year contract, and this would give them a reason to void it.
Well, I've said it from the beginning. I like him, but that was a big mistake, giving him $95 million, not even before his first year was over.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. That was a big year for them, and he did a good job, but $95 million for, 7-8 games?
Yeah.
That was stupid. And we've talked about why they did it a number of times on this show, and we get it. They're scared. They were scared he was going to leave, and I kind of understand that, considering he kind of had hopped around a little bit. But he's a coach. All coaches, are suspect to leave at any moment. You can't just give somebody a contract that they have not earned because you are worried about things that have happened in the past.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I agree. I think he's done. I don't think, especially considering I've read, what he's admitted to doesn't look good, and could be grounds for firing. So I think he's done for sure, and maybe they win one for the Gipper next week and take care of business. with Washington coming into town, but it's going to be hard for them to do that. Let's talk about the game me and you talked about last night, Utah, Baylor. That was PI on that last play.
Abso-freaking-lutely.
He tackled it before the ball even got there. And I've said this a million times. You can't just not call it because it's the last play of the game. If the penalty occurs and the infraction happens, you have to throw the flag, right?
Yeah.
You can't just not throw it because I don't want to change the outcome. Well, if it's a PI, you have to call it. He tackled him.
Well, look at the play before that set it up. The safety sits there and stands there until the ball is thrown. And the receiver's already 10 yards behind him. I'm like, what are you doing? You don't let anybody get behind you. Yeah.
He thought the clock was going to run out, and it did not. And they got that second put back on there and should have tied it up, honestly.
I felt so bad for the Baylor fans, especially the way they choked off against losing to Texas State the way they did. I mean, that was embarrassing.
No doubt. All right, real quick. Who are your top 3 teams in college football right now after 2 weeks? From what you've seen.
From what I've seen or what the polls are going to say?
I don't care what the polls say. I'm saying who do you think are the top 3 teams in college football right now?
You're going to hate me saying this.
Go for it.
Michigan, Texas, and Florida State.
Texas and Florida State. Yeah, I definitely hate you. I mean, I guess you could say Texas at this point. After yesterday, I did like what I saw out of their lines. I can put them in it. I've still got to, until somebody beats Georgia, man, I'm not just going to forget about them.
See, that was the hard part about it. Like, ideally, I was going to say Georgia number 1, but I'm like, I don't know. I mean, they've showed me nothing, and they've played nothing. So I don't know what they are.
They don't play anybody all year.
Yeah.
They have one of the easiest schedules for an SEC team that I've seen in a long time. And I just don't see anybody beating Georgia, and that's why I'm leaving them in my top 3. And I just can't forget about them. So,
I mean, what do I think the pollsters are going to do? They're going to go Georgia, Michigan, Texas.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now the question is, how far back does Alabama go?
I think they drop down to at least 10 or 11.
I was thinking the same thing.
I don't think they fall back anywhere. I mean, there's a spot open because Texas was at 11, so I think they fall back to there. But yeah, my top 3 would probably be Georgia. Definitely after yesterday, Texas. I have to include them. And then my third team, I don't know. I would say probably, maybe Florida State. I think they've made beating Southern Miss 66-13, I think is pretty impressive, honestly. I mean, Southern Miss isn't good, but they're not like a horrible program. Yeah. So I think I'd give them my third spot right now. So yeah. I got Georgia, Texas, and Florida State. So that's the only teams we differ on at this point. But I will give Penn State some credit. They've looked pretty dang good. And they're definitely a better team this year than they were last year. How about that? Yeah. And my player of the week, I've got to go with Omarion Hampton yesterday. North Carolina pulled out a pretty amazing looking victory against Appalachian State, a team that they just cannot really handle for some reason. 2 overtimes, 40-34. Omarion Hampton went 26 carries, 234 yards, 3 touchdowns. That guy had himself a day, and he's a really, really good running back, in my opinion. One of the best I've seen all year. Who was your best player of the day?
You've heard me talk about him before, Shedeur Sanders. I mean, just really controlled the game, doesn't make mistakes, and willed that team to win. I mean, there was times where he was getting flushed out of the pocket, and, I mean, he and the receivers are in sync so much that, like, there was one long play where it looked like he was going to get sacked twice, rolls out, throws it deep to Travis Hunter. I mean, it was he looks the part. He really completely looks the part, and I'm impressed.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll see. What games for next week, before we get out of here, which games for next week are you looking forward to most?
Well, obviously North Carolina and Minnesota. I think that's going to be a real key to see, Minnesota's defense against North Carolina's offense. I mean, Minnesota gave up what 2 yards total offense in the second half against Eastern Michigan. I think their offense has got to, get better as a whole. The Kansas State Missouri game, I'm intrigued by. I think Kansas State is a team a lot of people are sleeping on right now. They took Troy to the woodshed, and Troy is probably going to win the Sun Belt. They're a really good team. Yeah, I mean, there's really the slate of games isn't that great as a whole. I mean, there's just a lot of your traditional non-conference game. Washington at Michigan State.
Yeah, we talked about that. What do you think about Tennessee, Florida?
I think Tennessee takes them to the woodshed, goes in the swamp, and
even after struggling this week against Austin Peay.
I think Florida's that bad.
Yeah.
I honest to God, I think they're going to go into freaking swamp and they're going to drain it. And I mean, they're going to have gator boots walking out of there.
We'll see. We'll see. They've struck, buddy. I've lived here for a long time, and it didn't matter how good Tennessee was and how bad Florida was. Tennessee struggled beating Florida ever since I've been alive.
Well, I mean, with Joe Milton, it's either feast or famine. He either has a really good game or it's so awful that you got to pull him quick. Like, there's no middle of the road game for Joe Milton.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Well, we'll see what happens. Not any real big time games next week, but definitely some ones to watch as we try and see, how good these teams are moving forward. Penn State, Illinois is another one that I'm somewhat interested in. I want to see if Illinois can bounce back from this loss and see if Penn State can keep rolling. What do you think about that one?
I mean, Drew Allar has looked the part. Like, honestly, I don't know of a quarterback in Penn State for some time that's had that big of an arm. I mean, maybe Kerry Collins, and I mean, we're really dating ourselves when we're going back 30 years. But I mean, who else can you think of that's had that big of an arm playing in Happy Valley?
Yeah, go back to Tony Sacca. My question is, why was this guy not playing last year? He's a lot better and has a lot higher ceiling. I just kind of shake my head as to why he wasn't playing last year.
Agreed.
I get it. Sean Clifford gave them a lot of really good years, but this guy's better and should have been the starting quarterback last year, in my opinion. So
I mean, when he came out of high school, I thought he should have been getting some playing time because the arm strength and the ability was for real.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
I didn't understand why he wasn't getting the looks that he was. So
I agree. All right, well, we'll wrap it up, put a big red bow on week 2 college football, and we'll come back and break it down next week and hopefully find out a little bit more. I hope there's some upsets in that slate of games because it kind of looks like there's not, but I hope there's a game that we are missing, and then we'll come back and talk about it heavy next week.
Absolutely.
All right, bud. Keep your chin up. I'll talk to you soon.
See you then. Bye-bye.